big news, and it must be big news because I'm outside making a video. I'm Gareth Shaw from Pera Prometheus, and the MOD have released two ISNs to give us an Easter surprise, 30th of March, ISN 2026-01 and ISN 2026-02. 01 relates to the scope of the Cybersecurity Model version 4, and specifically against DEFSTAN 05138. And 02, ISN 2026-02, relates to the Defence Cyber Certification. This is really big news because for the first time MOD are talking about DCC, and it is a big change. We'll go inside, I'll bring up the laptop, we'll have a look at them in a little bit more detail. Okay, first up, let's have a look at Industry Security Notice 2026-01, dated 30th of March 2026. This is an update to DEFSTAN 05138, and particularly it's there to clarify questions that have been raised regarding scope. That's the scope for the cybersecurity model, and quite importantly the Defence Cyber Certification, or the DCC. Not going to go through this line by line, but there are a few parts which are relevant. The first here is say this applies to all suppliers engaged in contracts for which the UK MOD is a contracting party, and to whom DEFSTAN 05138 applies. So if you are involved in any contract relating to MOD and you are following DEFSTAN 05138 in the cybersecurity model, this is something you want to read through. What's useful here, if we come down to paragraph 4, whereas DEFSTAN 05138, which was published back in May 24, sets out the controls applicable to the Cybersecurity Model version 4, with compliance being further assured by the DCC. Now, why this is relevant is it's the first time MOD have formally, in an industry security notice, acknowledged that the DCC, the Defence Cyber Certification, will be applied against CISM version 4. And there'll be a little bit more on that later on. Whereas up until now, our advice has been be careful how you spend your money, because there has been no formal acknowledgement by MOD. Now we have that. Now there's a reason to justify why you would consider DCC and why you should really be taking a very strong look at DEFSTAN 05138 issue 4 on the cybersecurity model. Paragraph 8 is another relevant piece here. And this is where the notices to SROs, senior responsible owners. This is the way MOD is going with everything, where you need to take responsibility for risks within your own organisation relating to your obligations to MOD and the security of the MOD related contracts. And then the other part here is worth everyone having a real good look at the scope. As I say, scope has been under a little bit of question, particularly for the difference between the cybersecurity model's scope and that of the Defence Cyber Certification. However, if we go down to, really worth going through this slow time, but for the purpose of keeping the video brief, paragraph 1.4 states clearly that DEFSTAN 05138 applies to the whole of the organisation as applied to business critical operations. So, for the purpose of this standard, business critical operations are those activities, systems, assets and processes essential to the sustained operation of the supplier, where unavailability, inaccessibility or compromise would have a material adverse effect on the supplier's ability to operate, and that in turn having an effect on UK defence. So the next part that is really relevant in this ISN, particularly how it's talking about the scope in relation to the cybersecurity model and CISM version 4, is this part here. This is where we're saying that or MOD are saying the requirements set out within this standard can be applied by supplier organisations of any size or structure. Where specific controls may not reasonably apply due to the nature of an organisation's operations, this should be discussed with the Defence Cyber Certification certifying body. This is a really interesting piece of direction, because what it's really saying here is that the scope agreed under Defence Cyber Certification will be the scope that will potentially be acknowledged by the Cybersecurity Model and DEFSTAN 05138. That's a significant piece of direction from MOD, and as we see when we look at the next ISN, this really is the proof that the Defence Cyber Certification will be a major part of proving assurance for the cybersecurity model. This is the real crunch part, which up until now we have not seen. Validation of compliance with the requirements of this standard can be achieved and demonstrated through a supplier obtaining certification through the DCC scheme at the corresponding levels 0 to 3. Certification of compliance applies only to the entity undergoing assessment. It does not automatically extend across wider corporate groups unless a group level arrangement is explicitly justified and approved via the DCC certification authority. This is the real meat and the bones. This is MOD saying it's going to acknowledge DCC, it's going to acknowledge the DCC levels, and that if you go and pursue the DCC levels, it should be taken into account when undergoing assessment via Cybersecurity Model. Now, if we then go and have a look at the next ISN, Industry Security Notice 2026-02, use of the Defence Cyber Certification, DCC, as an assurance control under DEFCON 658. This confirms that a supplier holding and maintaining valid certification at the appropriate level, which has been issued under DCC scheme, may submit details of such a certification as evidence that they have satisfied the requirement to apply relevant controls against DEFSTAN 05138. This is really big. This is the first time that we've actually seen from MOD them clearly stating that if you do DCC, your money has been well spent, and that your corresponding level will apply to the Cybersecurity Model and DEFSTAN 05138. Again, worth reading, a shorter ISN this time, but still worth reading in full in your own time. But another part which I thought was worth noting here: suppliers who hold and maintain current valid certification issued via the DCC scheme may submit this as assured evidence of compliance with the commensurate control level set out in DEFSTAN 05138 Issue 4. Where the level of certification is equal to or greater than the control level specified for the requirement. This evidence should be accepted in satisfaction of the supplier's requirement to evidence compliance with that standard as is specified under DEFCON 658. So again, they're saying that if you do DCC, it will be acknowledged. Buyers are therefore instructed that a supplier holding and maintaining current valid DCC certification at a level equal to or greater than the consummate level to the requirement is to be considered in the satisfaction of the control requirement to DEFSTAN 05138 Issue 4 as specified under DEFCON 658. So this is direction. We're thinking really to the primes to say, yes, if you have someone where you need them at DEFSTAN 05138 level 2 and they can show you DCC certification at that level, you can accept it. Really big change, very much changes the Pera Prometheus view on what DCC means now. Whereas before we've advised caution and making sure that you know what your money is going to get you. This is particularly advantageous to people who've contacted us in the past and said that they want to prepare for working for defence even if they don't have a contract. You can now pursue the DCC levels, providing that the certification bodies are capable of providing the certification at the level you want to go at. You can now pursue something proactively before actually getting an MOD contract and requiring the cyber risk profile being issued to you by the contracting authority. So big step forward, changes things quite a bit. So two ISNs that have come out which are really quite significant and have a real big impact on assurance, information assurance throughout the defence industry. So as you can see, this is some real clarity on where things stand with the Cybersecurity Model version 4, DEFSTAN 05138, issue 4, and more importantly DCC, the Defence Cyber Certification. We have now got clear direction from MOD that this will be recognised. So this means two things. One, the Pera Prometheus stance on DCC changes. It has now been formally acknowledged. As much as there is a cost to DCC, not insubstantial one, you now know at least what your money is going to get you. And for all those companies out there who want to be proactive in approaching defence contracts, you now have that option. So whereas before we've had conversations with companies like, what can we do? We have to wait really for clear direction from a contracting authority. You can now take proactive steps to get yourself ready for contracting with defence using the DCC. So really worth a good look. So get in touch with us if you'd like to find out more. You can do that via the website peraprometheus.com, and just fill out the contact form and someone will get in touch with you. It has been big news. This has been Gareth Shaw, MD Pera Prometheus, by the Big News Hedge. Stay safe, stay secure. See you at the next one.